Okay, so we are here today with Kieshia, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, but just going to have a short little 15-minute conversation to kind of get to know her. Election season has definitely started, so we'll be doing this with all of our candidates prior to our candidate forum and, of course, our luncheon. So, Kieshia, just give me a little bit about you, and I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay. Well, my name is Kieshia Dawkins. I go by Kieshia. I am a native of Texas. I've lived in Mansfield for almost 10 years.
Okay.
I have a daughter who graduated or who attended school in Mansfield. She graduated high school in 2019. In my professional life, I work as a social worker. I work for the state of Texas, Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I have been there for 14 years. And
Wow.
so yeah, I work in criminal justice and victim services. And so yeah, that's kind of me.
What's the most interesting thing about that position?
Um, I guess, well, working with victims of violent crimes, probably the most interesting thing is being able to help those who don't have a voice or don't feel like they have a voice. So helping them to be heard and helping them to put their lives back together again after somebody, kind of came in and wrecked it. So.
Okay. All right. So in regards to MISD, what do you feel is probably the primary issue facing the district?
In my opinion, probably the thing that I guess would be the issue that I see the most as something that needs to be fixed is their special education department. I am a big proponent for special education. So I think that that's the probably most underrepresented department in MISD, because our kids who are performing at, on standard and above standard, they are getting all of the attention that they need. And, that's our common population. But our special education students, those are your least common factor. You don't really see them as much, and they can't always advocate for themselves. Their parents are their only advocates, and sometimes they don't even know what they need. They just know that they need help. So that's the area that I see probably needs the most attention.
So is there something specific that you would want to implement or change or?
Well, I would love to see a bigger forum for parents to get together. It's oftentimes a challenge for those parents to get together because they already have their hands full. But if there was a way to just build a community around them, so that way they know that they're not alone, their students know that they're not alone, and that they have staff and they have a support, that would, I think, would be a big change. And then also letting them know what services that they do qualify for. What do they have at their fingertips? What are their resources? Because oftentimes they don't know, like you don't know what you don't know. And so because they don't know that, that they can get certain accommodations, or they may know that they can get an accommodation, but they may not know what those accommodations look like. And none of these things are just readily spelled out. You have to research and find them. So kind of being able to help them make more informed decisions and put all that information out front, I think would really be something that would be helpful.
Okay. Is there something that you're pulling from your own background or from your experience that applies to this issue?
Yes. So when my daughter was going to school in Mansfield, she required a 504 plan. So that's your federal government plan that gives the accommodations to the students in the schools and in the workplace. So I had no idea that that was a thing. I just knew that, my daughter, who was diagnosed with ADD and level 1 autism, I just knew that I had to be there to do everything for her, that, to make sure that she was successful. Academically, she did well. I didn't have any problems with that. But sometimes I'd have issues with her turning in her schoolwork. We'd spend all night doing homework and projects, and then she'd get a 0, and because they weren't turned in. And so in her mind, I brought it to school, but she wouldn't take it out of her backpack, or, so, and those are just little simple things. And I know there are parents who their kids have far greater challenges than just not being able to turn in homework on time. However, knowing that she had this, disability, or she had this uniqueness to her, but yet she just needed a little bit of extra help. And so a lot of times she was overlooked because her grades were fine. And behaviorally, she did okay. So, the teachers just felt like, okay, she's normal. She's like everybody else. But indeed, she did have some challenges and she needed help. So I know if on that scale, if I had those issues and I didn't know what to do, and I'm trying to juggle work and be at her school, and I'm trying to be the mom at school, the mom at home, and the employee at work. So if I know that I'm pulling my hair out just to make sure that she's successful, then there are other parents who are doing the same thing. And if they just knew that, hey, I do have a resource, then I think that would make them, it would make their life a lot easier, honestly.
Okay. What was the reason for deciding that you were going to run for school board?
Well, in 2016, when my daughter was in high school, that's when she started having the most challenges. So not only did she have ADD and she was level 1 on the autism spectrum, but she was also 2 years younger than all of her classmates. So, like I said, academically, she excelled. But as a young learner in a world she's just totally abnormal in this world. And, I had, just some different challenges, but they weren't things that couldn't be overcome. They just were challenges. And so while she was in school, I said, I would love to sit on the board to help other families that may be going through, similar issues. And but I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to run in 2016 or any time while she was in high school, because I just kind of felt like personally it was a conflict of interest. I didn't read that anywhere. That was just my own personal thought. And then I also felt that I'd be too emotional to do it then, because right now my emotions and my first responsibility is to my kid and making sure that her needs are met. But I knew that I wanted to be a change to so many other kids and not just my own. So at that point, I started studying everything about the school board, why they met, when they met, what was the purpose of their meetings. And then I started attending school board meetings, not just in our district, but other districts, because I wanted to see what was going on all throughout Texas. So just attending these meetings, and I said, you know what, I want to be that change. And then over time, from studying these different school boards and attending meetings, especially in MISD, I started seeing other faces that I recognize and names that I knew from my other work in the community. So I said, you know what, if these people that I know, they're making a difference, but at some point their time is going to pass. So I wanted to be there to pick up that torch when that time came. So now I just feel like this is my time.
So it's interesting that you not only attended MISD school board meetings, but you went to others. What was your number one takeaway from attending those meetings?
The number one thing is that as the school board, we should be focused on our children, whatever that looks like and whatever the needs of your district is, not focused on personal vendettas or kind of the back and forth, he say, she say, but we should be focused on events that pertain specifically to the children. Now, I understand there will be times when we do have to address other things, disciplinary things with your faculty and staff, or, handling resignations that may not have been done according to procedure. So I understand the board votes on those kind of things, administrative things, but the number one focus should be our students and what can we do to improve the education of our young scholars. And with times always consistently changing, that is constantly changing. So what we did 20 years ago, of course, we don't do now. And I just really feel like the students and keeping up with the times and changes and meeting the needs of the students should be the number one thing. And I realize in MISD that is their focus, because there were some other districts where I have seen their meetings for like the past year, and I still can't tell you what's going on with their students. I can tell you what's going on with each of those people individually, those board members and some of their personal beliefs, but I cannot tell you what is going on with those children in the district.
Interesting. Well, I appreciate you taking time to have a short little visit with us today, so we can kind of start to get to know you and the other candidates as well, and look forward to seeing you at the candidate forum.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm super excited to
Okay.
go.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.